Thank you for saying that. So my name is Ray. I've been working in boarding school admission for the past 18 years. So it has been very interesting and very rewarding. So would love to share our experience with you guys. I attended a school, went to school in the US as well as university. I didn't go to boarding school, but I didn't even know boarding schools exist. I went to a day school. But after learning about the wonderful world of boarding schools, they are indeed doing something quite impressive. So that's why so many students and families are interested. So hopefully, in the seminar today, you're able to learn more, and we have a small group today. I imagine probably thank you for if you, you are already in your summer holidays, still taking time to join this. So specifically today, our discussion will focus on U.S. boarding schools, because if you're aware, U.S. boarding schools admission preference or the rule of the game are very different from day schools, also very different from UK boarding schools or Swiss boarding schools. So today's seminar specifically will talk about building a competitive profile for US boarding schools, and specifically for entering in grade 8 or grade 9. As you know, right, most of the senior high schools, they start taking students in grade 8 or grade 9. Majority grade 9 actually, but some grade 8. And also depending on when you apply, we say grade 8 and grade 9 because some students, they want to do grade 8, rising grade 9. So they will be finishing grade 8 in their home country versus some students, they would want to finish grade 9 and then repeat grade 9. So it's just different preference. Okay. If you joined our webinar last time, right, and that was 1 month ago, talk about the emission trends and whatnot, you might have seen the slides. So basically in that, and if you didn't and you're interested to know, right, basically we analyze the results of the past emission season and what are the readings and what are the things that we are learning, the updates and how to help our students. So if you missed that one and you're interested, you're welcome to ask us for a recording or for the resources. But just to recap a little bit, right? So when the admission office read an application, they think about it in different layers. The first one is academic, right? That's the baseline of everything. The next one will be activities and engagements, or sometimes in the application, it's called a candidate profile. I guess in the adult world, you can call it a resume, a CV, right? And then layer 3 is your personal traits, your initiative, your self-management skill, a lot of that. Not only those, right? A few more others, but a lot of those traits will come through in the interview and in your essays. So just a framework to discuss. So now we know this is the rubric, right? This is the standard, what you are being measured against as a candidate. Then the next thing we can talk about is if you should have, depending on how many years, but 1, 2, 3, 4 years before your application, then how you best use this time to make you a not you, but your student, your child, a stronger candidate. Or maybe we have students listening, I don't know. Okay, but usually will be the parents. All right. So let's talk about academics. And this one, to be honest, when the parents, my clients ask me, oh, is my child ready? Do you think the child can be a competitive candidate, right? Most of the time they focus on this one. So I figure we'll discuss this first. But I guess today the content is like slightly advanced because I'm not like gonna talk about the most obvious, because the most obvious, I guess, for people you can know, or ChatGPT can probably tell you. You don't need a consultant with almost 20 years of experience to tell you. So I thought I would just tell you the part that is less obvious. Okay. So, but feel free if you are new to this whole boarding school admission kind of terminology, and if you have any questions, just feel free to type or ask at the end. I'll try to address it. If you type, I can even answer it live probably. Okay, so academic baseline. When we talk about this, they basically, as a student, right? The most important thing is being a good student and having good grades, because even if you are a wonderful athlete, but if you cannot catch up with the schoolwork, that doesn't make sense, right? That defeats the purpose of going to a school. So how do they assess that? So first, they look at your academic performance in the past 2.5 years at the time of application. So if you look at the box to the right here, if you're applying to grade 9, assuming that you are not repeating and you are finishing grade 8 and then go there for grade 9, or if you're in a UK school, it'll be your year 9, right? So a different school and different system have different ways of naming their grades. So let's stick to the US terminology, okay? So grade 8 to grade 9. Then if you know the deadline, right? The deadline is in January. So in the middle of grade A, you already submitted everything. So the second half of the grade A school report, the school will not know when they tell you the admission decision. So that's why it's only the second half, the first term of grade A. Now they want 2 more years before that. So that usually will be your grade 6 and grade 7. And a lot of times parents ask, right, my kid from a different school in grade 6, then yes, you will need the school report and the official transcript from both schools. Now, if you're repeating, then you just add one to the numbers, right? Then it will be grade 7 and 8 and first term of grade 9. So obviously enough. So, but then some of my clients tell me, oh, grade 4, grade 5 school report not look so good, it's fine. You're not going to submit it as part of your application. So I think that's worth knowing. The other thing they want to look for is your TOEFL, your SSAT, and all that. We can discuss in the following slide. But before that, I get another. I think if you ask me, right, the biggest value academic wise to preparing early is that you can choose your curriculum alignment. What does that mean, right? If you think about all the different possible schools that you can attend, it could international school, although assuming you are not already in the US, right? But if you're already in the US, then you are in the strongest alignment category, right? Number one, American schools. You're already in an American school. Even some students, they're already in an American junior boarding school. So that is like the most aligned situation you could be in. But majority of the students, they are not in America already. They are applying internationally. At least majority of my clients, okay, I should reframe. So my clients, they're usually international students. Often studying in an international school. So let's say here in Singapore, American International School, Dulwich College, which runs a UK curriculum, right? Or UWC, United World College, runs an IB system. If you're from Shanghai, right, Shanghai American School, whatnot. So basically, if you are already attending international school with an American curriculum, then you are kind of one step ahead of everyone else because your student is very used to the kind of American classroom, the American way of learning and participation methods and discussion based and project based and all that. So I think it's a lot easier for that student to to transition to an American boarding school. Like IB, although it's not strictly American, but still is run a way that is quite similar to the American model. So I will put it in the strong alignment category. And to be honest, like most of our students are in that category. Probably like 70-80% of my clients are in that category. So you're good. But we do have students that are in the other, right? Like I mentioned, for example, Dulwich running a British curriculum, right? For example, Australian International School or Singapore local schools or in a Thai local school or Chinese local school, right? So I think there are two layers, right? One is like you're running a non-American curriculum, and especially the assessment method, like maybe some of the curriculum, like Singapore system, is very exam oriented, but it's not very process oriented. So in that case, right, you do need to condition. I guess condition is too strong a word, but like gradually let the student to be aware that you going to America is not only going to a different location. The whole mindset, the whole education philosophy is different. So that even better, you can maybe experience American education in summer programs. So when we talk about academics alignment, it's not just the grade, and you need to look into exactly how the classrooms are run and how things are taught and how things are measured. And if you are in a school that has a different system and a different language, that's even more tricky, right? So for example, you're in a local Japanese school, you're in a Chinese public school, right? So you don't even learn in English, then that will take extra effort because you need to make sure that you'll be capable and ready to learn in a fully English environment. Okay, so that's the options that you can make if you are preparing early enough. I have a lot of clients actually, if they're attending local non-English schools, they will transfer to an international school at around grade 5, grade 6, right? So that they still have time to go into mainstream English learning before grade 7, grade 8, when your school grade really matter. Or I have students that are in Singapore local school, right? I don't know if you know, but Singapore don't allow local citizens to go to international schools, so they don't have that option. But they, for example, some of them might choose to go to junior boarding school in the US or in the UK. As a bridging year. So what I'm saying is you're not just looking at your school grade, but you're also looking at, if you start early enough, opportunity to restructure your whole path so that by the time that you apply to US boarding schools, your whole education path will be more aligned towards your end goal. Okay, so that's a big discussion with most families. I'll end it at that. The other thing they look at is academic rigor, and this rigor is in the school context. Okay, so they are not gonna take a student again attending an American boarding school and compare them to student attending a local school in Japan. They're not gonna do that. So will evaluate your teacher comments, your grades in the context of your school. So that point is very similar to um, the university process. So to be honest, because the student is still quite young, right? Grade 6 to grade 8. Most schools don't have academic levels or distinctions or streaming. So you will be taking generic classes. Most of the time, you don't have that much electives, academic coursework. So I'll say for this age group, right, the admission officer are looking for your and some school don't even have letter grades, don't have number grades for the younger kids, right? So really they're looking for teacher comment. So if you look at the teacher recommendations, right, they ask questions. Not only is the student getting an A or B, not only is the student good in algebra, right? They ask question like, what is his behavior inside of the classroom? Is he respectful? Is he honest? Is he curious, right? So they ask many personality traits. So a lot of times, not just the report card, is the student's actual behavior in the classroom that is actually important as well. So and sometimes the parents come ask me, oh, I can choose art or design technology. Which one should I choose, right? Doesn't really matter for this age group because no matter what you choose, you're not gonna be super specialized at this age. So feel free to just explore, and all the important things like English, math, and physics, right? Everybody's learning anyways. So that. And I think consistency is important as well because boarding school want to admit students that are safe, right? Imagine for especially international students, you're traveling, you're adapting in a completely new world. So if you have a fluctuation even within your home country in the past 2 years, that's notable, then it will make them feel a little uneasy of how stable the student's performance will be when they go to a foreign country and living by themselves for the first time, right? So consistency is important. Um, but I will say whatever it is, then it is. Don't need to stress too much about the past. So just be mindful that although you're applying in grade 8, grade 9, but they collect the record for the past 2, 3 years. So that I think it's important to pay attention to get good teacher comments and grades starting early. And TOEFL and SSAT, first is not required for everybody. There is a good chance for most boarding schools, if your student has been learning in English in the past 4 or 5 years, especially some students have been learning in English their whole life, there's a good chance that TOEFL or Duolingo, basically English ability test, is not required. So if for your student English is not a native learning language, then TOEFL might be required. But it's valid for 2 years, so you don't really need to wait till the last year to take the TOEFL. Um, and the SSAT is required by some schools, not required by some schools. But SSAT is only valid for 1 year. Specifically, if your deadline is in January of 2027, let's say, if you go in next September, then your deadline is next January, then the earliest you can take the SSAT is this August or September. So basically, it's 1 year, and 1 year counting from the time you step into the school. So really, it's like half a year before the deadline, you can start taking the SSAT. You could still take it before, but anything you take it before that is not counted towards your application. You can still try it out, right? But you cannot use that score. So that's why there's no point you take the SSAT too early, because the score will not be valid by the time that you apply. Also, because SSAT is optional, so probably by the last year, before your application, you will know better about your performances in your academics and in your sports and other activities. You have a better gauge on what level of school that you apply to. Therefore, you will know whether SSAT will be required by most of your school or not. So, and as our consultants, that's what we do all the time. Like usually in the first encounter, when we start working with a student, we will quite early on determine whether SSAT will likely be required or not, because SSAT is not the easiest test for most of our students. Like, unless you belong to the 1% can just sit down and get the perfect score. But otherwise, the other 99% of our students need to work hard for this test. If it's not even required for you or your specific situation, then all the more no need to waste time in preparing for it, the time and the money and the energy, right? So just that, and then we'll give individual recommendation to whether you should. Another good way that you can determine whether you should take those tests or when to prepare is by taking a mock test. You can do them online. You can buy it from their website. You can do a mock test and see what your score is. So if your score is like closer to your ideal range, then I'll say you don't need so much time. Maybe half a year to prepare for it is okay, right? So for example, the SSAT, like if you're aiming at 2200 and your mock score is already 2000, right? Then maybe half a year is enough. But some students, maybe the first time they take the mock test and the score is 1700, right? Then I'm like, okay. And if they're aiming very high, the top 10 schools, right? I'm like, okay, then we need to spend a lot of time and energy. So there's a big range. I have students that literally never taken a prep test and score perfectly. Like I said, the 1%, right? But I do have students that just to prepare for the SSAT test, getting them from a very low baseline to where they want to be able to get into top 10 boarding schools. They study more than 100 hours just for the SSAT. So there's a big range. It's good to know early and plan early. So other than academics, what else do they look for? So this is the more interesting part, I hope. Schools look for more than just achievements. A lot of parents will say, "Oh, my student don't have this certificate, my student don't have this championship, whatnot." I'll say the American boarding schools don't look at it that way. I mean, good if you have championship, you're a record breaker, right? You're a top score holder in the city, the country. Good, of course, it's gonna work towards beneficially towards your application. But most of our students don't have that. Like they are just decent, happy, positive, smart, motivated students. Okay. So that's why I want to bring our mindset out of like having to super cram our resume, our activity list. Why the schools want to know your activity is they want to know your personality, your contribution to your community, whether you would participate in activities, whether you will build meaningful relationship, right? Whether you would do something outside of the classroom. So remember, we're applying to a boarding school, right? So imagine boarding school if 1/3 of your time is in the classroom, which is what we talked about just now, the academic piece. And then the other 1/3 of your time probably is doing something else, right? Weekend activities, afternoon activities, field trips, right? And then the other 1/3 is your behavior in the dorm. So that's why activity is very important. If they build this wonderful boarding school, all the facilities, all the resources, all the private coaches and tutors and teachers, right? And they don't want to recruit a whole bunch of students who are not interested to take advantage, right? If they have a soccer game playing, right? They don't want nobody go watch it, right? So that's why they want to see students that are already very involved in their existing school or their existing community, so that is a good indicator of students that will be actively participating in the next school, the boarding school, and to take care of take advantage of all the wonderful opportunities. Okay, so I want to make sure I slow down and be very thorough in communicating this piece because I think that's important foundation to our understanding. So most importantly is the sport. I shouldn't say most importantly, okay? So um um the the thing you spend most time doing likely for many students will be sport. Uh, I do not want you to log out right now if your kids absolutely hate sports, okay? There are a handful of schools that are not very sporty in the top American boarding schools. There are those choices. So and once in a while we have a student that say, I absolutely do not want to do any sports. I only want to do music and drama and arts, right? Or architecture. That's fine. I can find you the school. But now I'm speaking about the other 90% of majority of the US boarding schools. They are very sports oriented in terms of time commitment and also campus culture. Right. So, and there's different levels when we talk about sports. So level one, and I think this is something that you should start right now if you have boarding school in mind. And my little baby is only 2 years old, and I'm building her with level one in mind. Okay, is to build an active lifestyle. And if I interview all my students, and I ask them what is the most difficult thing the first year you go to a boarding school, I would say 80% of the time, people will tell me it's not the classroom, it's the sport. Because most students, if they are not a professional, they're not on any professional sports team, they are not used to that kind of intensity, right? You're doing sports for 2, 3 hours every afternoon, Monday to Friday. Sometimes you even get extra practice on weekends. For example, I have a student who played both school team and club team. So literally, she playing sport for 7 days and a few hours. Like on weekends, sometimes you get special training for 4 hours. Again, not that intensity for everybody, but it's quite safe to assume that you'll at least be doing 2 hours for 5 days. If a student is not active, that is quite physically demanding for the first year. By second year, you get used to it. So might as well just groom that lifestyle and groom that enjoyment. And it's a healthy thing to do, right? So apparently science research says that if you're more active in your body, you are also more active in your brain. So that helps with the academic piece as well. So that's level one, at least be active. Level two is experience team sport. So I do have a lot of students, especially here in Asia, right? They like to do badminton, ping pong, swimming, right? Um, I guess those could be team sport, but it's not like a true team sport in a sense that had that kind of interaction and team dynamic like soccer, basketball, volleyball, lacrosse, hockey. Those are the team sport that I'm talking about, right? Basically, things that will train you on your teamwork, your communication, leadership, sportsmanship, blah, 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 all the things, wonderful qualities. And if you look at the schools, US boarding school sport requirement, right, you'll notice a lot of schools, they require 2 or 3 seasons of sport. And sometimes they specially note that at least one season need to be a team sport. So you don't have to do team sport all 3 seasons, that would be a lot, right? So for example, my students, maybe they can do skiing in the winter, right? And then they can do golf in the fall, or golf can sometimes be in a sports sport as well, depending on the school. And then they can do, let's say lacrosse in the spring, right? So up to you. So what I'm saying is like most of the time they require students to do one team sport. Usually it's a contact sport, right? So that is the next level if you want to level up. You don't have to be very good at it, but at least have the experience, right? Level 3 is think about boarding life, like we talk about, right? So now you think about, okay, if my favorite school is, I don't know, just making an example, Hotchkiss, right? Then you look at Hotchkiss website and see, okay, for the fall, I have 10 sports I can choose from. Winter have 12 and spring has 8, right? Then you look at the list and imagine if you go to Hotchkiss, what are the 3 sports each year you play? And you think that's like, because it's quite difficult, right? I mean, um, to kind of fast track the sport. Like when I talk about SSAT, my students spending 100 hours doing SSAT, but like sport is like even more time consuming than that, right? If you want to get good, not good, but like at least decent in a sport, it's gonna take more than 100 hours, right? So since our topic today is starting early and building a solid profile, I think you can start uh, thinking about that piece. And the wonderful thing is, right, if you do the sport and get ended up not going to a boarding school, that's still fine. You have made yourself more physically fit. Okay. Um, Advertisement time. When we're talking about sport, this is the perfect plug. As you know, we run boarding school fair and we run boarding school seminars, and we're good friends with our admission officers. So I think start with this time because they are finished with the last batch of students. They are thinking about the next season already, their 2027 intake. So now is the time that they will be joining this kind of webinar, getting in touch with prospective families, introducing their school. But because to be honest, right, all these schools, as you see, North Mount Herman, Hotchkiss, but they are very famous schools already. They don't really need to kind of oversell themselves because they have enough applicants. So that's why at Sesame, what we're trying to do is kind of listen to our clients, our parents and our network to see what they're interested in. And we realize we get more and more question about sports, athletics, and specifically if they are pre-college professional or how to balance sport and other commitments and all that. So that's why we run seminars of different topics. So this one specifically is about sports at top American boarding schools. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code or you can message us later to sign up. So this one is online. Okay, back to our topic, right? So after sports, what is the second most popular activity? Usually it's music and arts, right? So music, so many people ask me, oh, what grade do I need to be? Is my grade 4 piano good enough or is my grade 6 violin good enough, right? I think like the school grade or the SSAT or whatnot, they don't have an official cutoff, but they have like a soft cutoff ballpark figure that you should aim music and art, absolutely nothing. Like for example, I have student last year, he has not taken any music exam for his whole life, but he's a wonderful player, and in fact he's like the top in his school and plays in the chamber group versus another student maybe have taken all the exams at grade 4, right, in an instrument, but it was just like homework for him. He just take it as an exam instead of a hobby. And you can see when he play, he doesn't have that kind of passion, right? So I'll say, not if you have the certificate, good, but like if you don't have it, don't stress about it. If you're truly good, you can feel free to record a video and submit it to the school, right? But I also want us to think about not only the achievement, it's also the process, right? You think about, can I take this instrument and play in the school orchestra or ensemble, or can I join the school choir? So you always think about um, not in the lens of what is one more line I can put on my application, because that doesn't matter. When the application and the admission people think, they always think about what does this translate to in my school. Okay. So that's why I always recommend, if you are new to an instrument, I understand piano is the most popular choice, and I do understand that it's a very good foundational instrument that you start with, right? Give you very good brain development and music knowledge foundation, right? But on the other hand, right, each school only need one or maximum two top piano player. So if you're not top in your piano, um, it will be less useful to the boarding schools. Versus, think about how many violins are there in an orchestra. Think about how many trumpets or clarinet they need in the orchestra. They always need one more. So what I'm saying is, like, there are certain instruments that are uh, more stimulate easier to be used and enjoy as part of a community than a solo instrument. So that's something that you can think about as well. But by all means, like, I have a student that have been playing at a very high level a folk instrument. It's not even piano. It's like a very um, niche. In fact, it's like the ancient Chinese guitar, right? But she plays so well. So that is very impressive as well. So I'm not saying that. I hope I have said this and qualified this enough so that you understand. Yes, I, as an admission and education consultant, I would tell you from my experience objectively what are the things that could work positively, what for your application, what are the possible shortcuts. But I want to emphasize, application is just one part of the student's life. We don't want to alter their life course just for that one thing. So by all means, pursue what they like. Even with my student playing this niche instrument, right? There's a way that we can showcase this. It's just less common, right? But there's still a way we can showcase it and make it interesting. Okay, leadership is another one that I want to talk about. And a lot of parents, they say, leadership, my kid is only in grade 6, and there's no leadership opportunity for grade 6 kids in his school. Yes, understand that. And most students, but leadership doesn't take a title. So that's what I want you to take away from. Um, and admission officers are very good at seeing to the empty titles. If you have a title, or like daddy, mommy have a charity, right? And then you have a title, but when the admission office interview you and ask you what did you actually do for this charity, and you come out empty, right? That's not very helpful. In fact, it's counterproductive. Versus, like, another student that's very young, I think, because he applied to junior boarding school, so he was in grade 5 by the time that he applied to grade 6. And then his leadership thing is literally he helped organize the teachers' table. And that's good enough, right? They want, I mean, not good enough. There's not an absolute measure, but I'm saying is that that's an impressive thing to say and to acknowledge, and to have that initiative to do that things. So I put a few example here for your consideration, right? So leadership doesn't have to have an official title. You don't have to be the manager or the captain. It could be just in classroom participation, you are leading a group discussion, right? Or a group project, you do a little bit more coordination work, or you do a little bit more bigger, difficult part of the project, right? Or team sports, that's very obvious. And I like, nowadays, right? A lot of the school team sports, I don't know about your school, but like I heard a wonderful thing about one of my students in his school team. Everybody gets to be the captain. So for him, he said, yes, I was the captain for 2 games this year. So I just thought that's a very interesting concept, the rotating captain thing. So everybody can can experience being a leader. And other school activities, right? Bake sales, school fair, certain, I don't know, environmental day. Every school have different activities, right? Cultural day. So, running a booth, small project, whatever. So encourage your student to take advantage of those opportunities, not just for the resume, right? Because they build a confidence. They is no matter where they are applying to boarding school or not, or college or not, right? It's still very good development for them. But having that boarding school application objective is just gonna be sometimes a little easier to convince them to do it. And you, right? They were like, hey, why do I need to do that? And you say, hey, it's good for your application 2 years later if you want to go to this wonderful school. Okay. Most of the time they do want to go. Okay. Helping younger students, I think that's a big one. I think if they have younger siblings, that's even easier. But if not, then I think many schools they have like organized student activities that help the younger kids, reading books, sports day or whatnot. Okay. So I think I have talked about this. Oh, actually, I have another example of a student, a younger student that was able to have a pretty interesting leadership experience. Basically, I think it was a school project. Everybody suggests an idea to improve the school, but his idea was chosen in the end and was implemented. And that idea was very simple, right? We have a school bus, and the school bus stop has no shelter. So his idea was to build a shelter for the school bus stop so that if it rains, people are covered, people don't get wet, and if it's sunny, then people don't get hot. Simple, right? Yeah, so that was his I mean, he did have to talk to the teachers and propose his idea and all that. So not simple, but it's nothing complicated like you imagine. Like he doesn't have to fundraise 1 million or anything like that. Okay. Um, so to wrap up this activity section, so don't think about like, oh, I have to have 10, 20 activities. And in fact, the applications are doing a pretty good job. They have reduced the amount of spaces that you can write more activities. So like they will limit you so that you can only put your most important ones. Although they always give you chances to say, okay, you can add additional material in the end, but like so, but I think that's a very like subtle message to tell you that not more is better, right? They want the depth, they want the commitment, they want to see your initiative, your whole thinking, and your personal contribution instead of just having a title or a line in your resume. Okay. This one is especially relevant. So we're coming to the end of our presentation today. Um, and the last three slices are very important and you can start doing now. And especially for the parents. So boarding school readiness, right? Sometimes when the school, we ask them, why do you take this kid and not that kid? They cannot really explain it. They said, oh, he has a great personality. I just think he's a perfect fit. I'm like, but if you look at the resume, they both have good scores. In fact, that kid even have a better score, right? Or maybe like even better at sports, right? Why do you take the other kid? And they said, well, I just have a good vibe about this kid. I just like him, right? So interestingly, boarding school is that kind of thing. And I still remember like 10 years ago or more than that, like someone told me, my kid is 5 years old and lives in the dorm with these older boys. I think about which boy I want to play with my 5 year old, right? So almost always talk about this example in every seminar because I think it's very important for the parents to understand when they talk about the character piece, the personality piece, what really are they talking about. But this slide is specifically, I think, discussing how you can groom that. And you want to groom that no matter what you're going to boarding school or not, right? For the future and the well-being of your child. But you will be more intentional in doing that, knowing full well that they will be leaving your home in 2, 3 years. Then you have the urgency, then you will be more intentional to do it. Okay. So include a lot of things, right? Responsibility, independence, decision making, right? So instead of saying you can only do 20 minutes of school screen time every day, right? And taking their devices away. Maybe try to come up with a self-monitoring system. Maybe try to let them come up with the target time, right? Maybe let them make decision about whether they do the screen time first or homework first, or which screen time first or whatnot, right? So what I'm saying is involve them more in the scheduling and the self-management pieces, so that they have ownership, so that they don't feel like they are being forced by discipline. They feel a stronger sense of ownership, because I do have students who are being monitored in a very military way at home. And once they left home, they want nothing but just stay with their computer games and phones. You don't want that to happen. So that's why you want to um, teach and train your student to be uh, responsible of their own time and schedule and to do and priorities, and start little. So once they start having small success, then they will be more confident and they have more skills, and kids learn fast. So, and the other thing that they need to learn, right, is the daily things, like organizing your own school bed, doing their own laundry, making their own bed. So like parents always ask me, right? Okay, what laundry did they need to do, right? They don't need to become a laundry expert. Like if you don't mind spending money, like you can just buy all done for them. But even then, right, they still need to be able to put their dirty laundry into a bag and drop them down at some place and then go back to collect their clean laundry, at least, and put that back in their closet. At least they need to do this much. But like some kids are very good. They can do their own coin laundry and dry it and fold it, right? So good for them. So small daily things. They don't need to be able to cook a full meal, but like some kids do like to learn how to use the air fryer or the microwave, so that if they want to make something they like, they can go to the dorm teacher's room to do it, right? So, personal. So you can start by, I think a very frequent thing that the parents entrust their kids to do is planning family trips, right? Planning the schedule, choosing the hotel, booking the flights, right? So I think all these are very, very good experience for them to start managing their own affairs. Attending summer schools, of course, right? So attending summer schools, you can see like let them get used to the academic piece, the schedule, the routine, and see if they are functioning well away from home. So I think that's why I think summer programs are a bit underrated, because going to boarding school is a big investment, both emotionally and financially. So you want to let them experience it before you make the decision. Okay, so this last bit is for for the parents. For families that are not sure whether to go to boarding school, I think the biggest reason, especially for mummies, sorry, I'm also a woman, but just my observation, um, is oh, would I lose touch with my kid, right? Would we not be so close anymore, right? No, it's just a different kind of parenting. And sometimes it works just well, because when they're younger, let's say in the grade four, right, they need more help, they need more hand-on-hand support, they need daily supervision and constant reminders and all those things, right? But when they're older, I think the relationship should change, whether they go to boarding school or stay at home anyways. But going to boarding school will give you, again, the incentive and the urgency, and the deadline to kind of change your parenting style a little bit. So I'll say usually it's for the better, because you become lesser of a manager, you become more of a mentor. And because they have all these other adults in their lives, right? The teachers reminding them this, the coaches reminding them this. So as a you can breathe and step back, and sometimes not demand so much of them, and become a just simple, unconditionally loving parents, finally. So I'll say, yes, the physical separation, but you can still remain very present emotionally for their life, especially nowadays. Flying internationally is so much cheaper and easier, and you have all the technology that they need to stay in close touch. So all good. All right, so that's that for our presentation today. The is just summary. One last piece of advertisement is our fair. I think a lot of you get to know us first through our boarding school fairs, the physical fair, where we have 20 or 30 coming here in Asia. This year we have Singapore and Bangkok. You have the dates on your screen. So please sign up. And because that's the only chance, right? That so easily meet so many wonderful schools all in the same room and talk to them all at the same time. Because if you have done school tour, you know, right? These schools are quite far away from each other. So like you drive 2, 3 hours from one school to the other school. But here in Asia, one time every year, they all come into the same room to see you. So you can go there for 2 hours and meet 30 schools. And not only that, we also have alums. So students that actually study in boarding school and come back to Asia to work, a lot of times they join these fairs and support their mother school, right? And also the parents, sometimes if the admission officers are not able to come, they will invite parents to represent them. And sometimes our clients even have a better experience talking to the parents because you get the unfiltered first-hand experience, um, even in a local language. So make sure you mark your calendar. Hopefully, we'll see you in Singapore and Bangkok. So that's our company. We do boarding school admission, we do university admission. Happy to talk to anyone or do a free consultation. So with that, I think that's the end of our presentation today.